Hello and welcome back. I'm Deirdre and this is episode 9 of moving into my apartment, getting myself settled, working out where the furniture's going and where the artwork's going and what it's going to look like, and doing a few minor things along the way. And today I started sanding the table behind me, over here, that I've talked about painting before, and I suddenly realised that I should be showing it to you as I did it, because while I know a lot of you will be very familiar with refinishing furniture and doing those sorts of small jobs, if you're not, then there are a few tricks along the way. Well, not even tricks, just there's a procedure, and going through it carefully and using the right tools. They're not sophisticated, you don't need anything special, but I haven't decided whether I'm going to go white or grey. If I use the grey, it is better with the white underneath it anyway, and this has to have a prep coat obviously, but even more than that, I like the grey to be able to be just lifted in some areas so that, you know, there's a hint of the white coming through. So I haven't decided, doesn't really matter at the moment, but there are two things. So one, I've got to get it sanded. Two, I've got to go to my friend's place where my drop cloths are to get hold of those so I can get the first layer down and protect this beautiful floor. And then I'll be able to put the first coat on, and that's all I'll do this week. Next week I'll put a finishing coat on, but I just want to see it and sort of get used to it being lighter. So enough chat, and I will go over to the table, show you what it is that I'm talking about, and get on with it. Right, so this is the table, and I just thought I'd show you, these are areas that have previously been damaged when it was before I even started sanding it. So you can see that the top's been knocked around a lot. These are scratches on it, not from me, but from previous use. And I just wanted to say, look, it's not a great piece of furniture. Look, here we go. You can see it's finger jointed timber, which I agree with completely, but it doesn't. It's not elegant for a a clear coat table, but it's a good use of timber, and you can be really sensible about using high quality timber then in other areas. You see those little V's? That means it's all jointed together, so they're short pieces of nice timber, but it's a way of using timber that you wouldn't be able to use otherwise. So then I wanted to talk to you about sanding. So this is a cork sanding block, and this is the piece of sandpaper I'm currently using, which is 240 grit, and that's a fairly fine. I don't want to scratch it. Now, a 240 grit is the number of particles per square inch, I think. Not certain. But anyway, so that the finer the sandpaper, the higher the number. So I've got 320, I think, in the other room, but I'm not going to bother using that on this. I don't need a glass finish. I've also got one of these spongy sander things that are handy to do things like the edge of the table, which is a curve, because you can actually bend it around it. You see, like that? It fits around it, and that way you're not rubbing with the sharp corner. What else do I have here? I have my trusty dusting brush, which I really like. See, I keep that on it, so that anybody else is around. That's not one you use for painting. That's just for dusting, and it gets into corners and it gets down into the little scratches and things and knocks the dust off. And I've just got a cloth. You see, I've been wiping all the dust as I've been going so it doesn't go flying around the room. Now, so I'm just going to do a bit more, and then I'll come back and show you. You can see, I just realised you can actually see why I've got to keep going. You see that? That's some of the finish where it's still quite shiny, and it'll be quite resistant to the next coat going on, and it won't give a good adhesion. So I want to get that back. Oh yes, now the other thing I wanted to say is always sand with the grain of the timber if you can. Now it's less important when it has had a coat on it like this has, because you're really scratching off the coat, the coating, the finish. You're not actually working on the timber, but as I show down here, it doesn't take much to break through, and suddenly you are actually down to the timber. And if you're going across the grain, so if I was to go this way instead of that way, I would scratch the timber. And so even though in theory I'm sanding a finished surface, in reality it doesn't take much to knock it back to the actual timber, and the wood needs to be protected. So I'm going to get back to it, and I'm going to sand in the direction of the grain and use my sanding block, because I wrap the sandpaper around the sanding block, and that gives a nice solid and consistent pressure throughout, you see. So you're going like that through the timber, along the grain of the timber, and I want to knock back all of that old finish so that I'll get good adhesion. I'm not going to have you watch me. It is as boring as watching grass grow, watching somebody sand. So I will leave you and I'll show you when I'm finished. Okay, well, I've finished going over it. That's this side. Okay, I did the eye level test and you couldn't see much that was still fairly shiny. I worked the sides and also that lip underneath and on this part as well, but I've also made sure that the lip is nice and smooth. It's the hand test to make sure that there are no catchy bits for anybody sitting at the table. And then over here I've just taken that cloth that I was using, I've just dampened it, and I'm using it I've been using it to take off the worst of the dust, and working like a tack cloth, which is just simply that, a slightly tacky cloth that you can use. The shine you can see is just the water. It's I mean, there's still a decent amount of finish on there, but I think I've got it so the point, it's roughed up enough, even though it steams quite smooth, but for paint it's roughed up. And I think that the prep coat, the undercoat, will adhere now, and that's what I want it to do, to adhere really well. Next stage will be putting on the prep coat. Yes, that's the big bowl that I use. But I'll also show you that I did manage to get my clock up. So coming in from the entrance door, there's my clock. Not as elegant a place as it was before, but it's not bad, and it reflects back across into the windows, which is rather nice when you first come in. And it says Festina Lente, which means to hurry slowly. So don't muck things up by hurrying. Do them slowly and you'll save time in the long run. And it's another one of my IKEA constructions. Just an IKEA mirror with a little IKEA clock in the middle and some stick-on letters. Bit of fun. Right, well, I'm back. I've got drop cloth underneath. I've decanted a bit of paint off into a yogurt pot. Most wonderful painting device ever. I've added a product that it's called a paint extender, but it really just means it flows beautifully. It's called Floetrol. Got my brush, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to brush and then roll with a dry roller, because I don't want to have the issue with bubbles, and I just want to get enough paint on to get it well covered, and frankly a paintbrush does that better. Now the paintbrush, I've got a nice bit of paint on, you slap it off, keeps a fair bit on, doesn't go right up into the stock. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint it on and roll it off. Probably best if I don't film myself doing this. Here's the first coat of primer sealer undercoat. It's only the first coat. I've gone quite thin. That's what rolling it off with a dry roller does. It takes away the brush marks, which otherwise can become quite stubborn, and you end up having to sand them off. You can't really see, you can just see the blotchiness, but it is only the first coat, don't forget. But I can see that there are not a lot of brush marks. See, you've got a good shine, already got a bit of sheen on that, and you can't see overt brush marks. I'm going to leave it at that for the moment until that's completely dry, and then I'll repeat, do the same thing, and then just leave it alone for the week while I'm busy. I'm going to the supermarket to get some food for the week. I'll do that second coat of paint before I go, if it's dry. If not, I'll do it when I come back. I'd love to have you following me on Instagram if you would like to, or on Pinterest. And of course, if you'd like to follow the process as I finish up doing things in this apartment, please subscribe. And I have the days of decluttering in a playlist here if you'd like to see those. I hope that whatever you're doing today, you're having a wonderful time. And I will see you for episode 10 very soon. Bye.